Hi there, and welcome to the very first episode of the Thinking Bigger Than Money podcast. I'm your host, Jim Marrocco, and I'm a financial planner. This podcast is a creation of mine that's been a real labor of love, a project where I get to show up not just as a holistic financial planner, but as a thinking partner. My goal here is to have honest conversations about money. We all have feelings of scarcity and fear. We all face the possibility of abundance and the natural uncertainties of life, and ultimately, how to align the money in our life with the life that we want to really live. What I want this podcast to be is a space to talk openly about money in a different way, not just about the technical details or how to have more of it, how to make more of it, or how to get out of debt, but rather money as part of the human story. A place that this can be for reflection and conversation and reimagining the role that money plays in our lives. So to kick things off, I thought I would share a personal story first about how I got here and how my own journey shaped the way I think about money in my life today. When I started thinking big financial about 8 years ago, the whole idea grew out of the fact that I had this background in my first career in investment management. And I had this desire and dream to somehow use that experience in a more human and more meaningful way. I wanted to do something that had really more connection to real people. And what I learned was that people really struggled with money. Money got in the way of all sorts of things, and it really got in the way of living the life that people wanted. And to me, that was something that was sad, but also preventable. It kept people stuck in jobs they didn't like. It prevented people from living a life they didn't want to live, whether it was not going back to school or making a career change or not taking a sabbatical that they wanted to or starting a family, you name it. Somehow, I felt like money was always involved. And so I really took the step of starting my own business and going on this journey to understand and figure out how to help people a little bit more with that, how to help people with the money in their lives, and ultimately toward the life that they wanted to live. That's what got me here, and that's really what keeps me invested in the work itself. One of my favorite books about money that I've discovered during my time as being a financial planner was called The Soul of Money by Lynn Twist. It's a terrific read if you haven't already read it. And she talks a lot about wonderful things in the book about the concept of having enough and scarcity and all of those things. But the one concept that she mentions in the book that really stuck out at me is this idea of having flow in money in your life, injecting flow into the money of your life. And the way that I sort of interpreted that for myself was that having energy and intention behind the money in your life, aligning what you're doing and directing the money in your life toward your values, understanding and having clarity about your values and where you want to get to so that you could take the money in your life and do that. So at the heart of it, by doing that, is sort of an antidote to the scarcity and fear mindset that we all have around money. So it really informs how I think about it and how I think about helping folks with this. So this podcast is really for someone to shift the way they think about money, dealing with uncertainty a little bit better, tying money and aligning money more with our values, maybe even learning some money scripts that we have or some narratives in our head that sort of keep us trapped. And really at the core of all of this, letting go of a scarcity and fear mindset that we all have in some form and embracing instead what's possible for you. I know I had a little bit of a wake-up call when I first entered this business and started working with clients. I had a client come to me one year and during one of our annual update meetings and took a look at our agenda and took a look at how much money he had and looked at that compared to the prior year. And, it was up a decent amount versus the prior year. There was good performance in that particular year, let's say. And he looked at it and said to me, Jim, I'm really confused. And I'm sitting here thinking, it looks pretty good. The picture's here. But he said to me, I'm sitting here and seeing that I have more money this year than I did last year. And I don't want more money. I don't want to end up dying with a bunch of extra money that I could have used while I was living or given away. And it really kind of, stunned me because that's not typically the reaction that you get. The interaction always sticks with me because it was really a turning point for me in terms of helping me to think differently about money and helping me to think differently about how I work with people with money. Here I was, sort of entering the business thinking everything was about accumulating and making sure people had enough money and they don't run out of money. And here's someone telling me, I want to run out of money. And he couldn't have been more right. And it really kind of told me and showed me that how I was even approaching the work was informed by a little bit of a scarcity and fear mindset itself, rather than a mindset of there being enough. Why is it that we are always sometimes obsessed with the idea of having more rather than having less and using the money for the things in our lives? I share this story both because it was so meaningful for me, but I hope stories like this will challenge my own thinking and your own thinking as you join me on this journey in the podcast. It's true that technology and spreadsheets and numbers and technical solutions are important money tools, but they're just a tiny portion of what's truly meaningful in the work. Getting to the heart of how we think about money, challenging those beliefs, understanding how scarcity mindset keeps us trapped, and aligning the money in our life with our values creates freedom. These are all important, meaningful parts of having conversation. Each episode, I hope to share with you what I've been learning from clients through real stories, real struggles that will help us and challenge us to think differently about money. Thank you so much for joining me on this first conversation, and I look forward to many, many more.